Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden within the silent walls of abandoned hospitals? Places where pain, death, and whispers of the past still linger long after the last patient was wheeled out. Tonight, we peel back the decaying walls and uncover the darkness that never left. Welcome to the channel. I'm Mr. Darkveil, and if you crave the strange, the terrifying, and the true, you're in the right place. Before we descend into these haunted ruins, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because here, the shadows always have something to say. Tonight, I'll take you inside 3 true tales from abandoned hospitals that were left behind, but never truly empty, from whispering walls to unseen presences and lost souls that still roam the halls. These stories are not for the faint of heart. Story 1. I never believed in haunted places, not really. I thought they were just stories people told to spice up abandoned buildings and rotting ruins. But after what happened to me at the old St. Marlow Hospital, I believe now. I believe too much. St. Marlow's sat crumbling on the edge of a small Pennsylvania town, wrapped in vines and rust. The last patient discharged in 1976 after a fire gutted the West Wing. Before that, it had been a tuberculosis ward, then a psychiatric hospital. By the time it shut down, St. Marlow's had a reputation no one liked to talk about. Missing patients, experimental treatments, and a doctor who vanished without a trace. Locals said the place was cursed, but to me, it was the perfect spot for an urban exploration video. I didn't go alone. My friend Lena was with me, a fellow adrenaline junkie with a camera, a flashlight, and zero regard for common sense. We arrived just after sunset, walking through the broken fence and across the overgrown courtyard. The air smelled like mildew and cold rot. Even the wind sounded sick there, low, wheezing, almost like breathing. Inside, the decay was worse. Paint peeled in long strips from the walls. Medical equipment lay in rusted heaps, tangled in wires. Every step echoed forever. Our flashlights cut thin lines through the darkness, revealing half-collapsed ceilings, shattered windows, and rooms full of empty, moldy beds. It was exactly what we were hoping for. We started filming, immediately narrating our exploration for the video. I cracked jokes to keep the mood light, but Lena kept going quiet. She said the building felt wrong, like it was watching us. I laughed it off until I started hearing it too. It began with whispers. At first, I thought it was just the wind slipping through the cracks, but they didn't sound random. They were low, raspy, and urgent, as if someone was trying to speak directly into my ear. I kept spinning around, but no one was there. Lena's flashlight began to flicker, and she muttered something about the battery, even though it was fully charged that morning. We found an old nurse's station on the 2nd floor and stopped to rest. The smell up there was stronger, like something had rotted for decades and never fully died. Lena sat on a gurney, rubbing her arms. "It's cold," she whispered. "It's so cold in here." That's when we heard the first voice, not a whisper this time, a child's voice, laughing. It came from down the hallway, high-pitched, echoing, wrong. We froze. There were no children, no people, just us, and the mold, and the dust. The laughter came again, then faded, like it was skipping down the corridor away from us. "We should go," Lena said, standing up too fast and almost dropping the camera. I nodded, and we started heading for the stairs. That's when we passed the old patient rooms. Their doors hung open like broken mouths, and inside each one the darkness seemed to pull at us. I felt something wrong from one of them, room 209. I paused in the doorway. "Hello," I called out, instantly regretting it. My voice sounded so small, swallowed by the silence. There was a reply, not words, not exactly, but something answered, a soft sound like breathing, then something heavier, a dragging. I turned my flashlight toward the far wall of the room, and I saw writing. Dozens of words scratched into the plaster, some shallow, some deep enough to gouge into the wood underneath. They were all different phrases. They never stopped watching. He took her eyes, the walls, listen, can't get out, repeating over and over in different sizes and handwriting, some smeared in what looked like dried blood, and then I saw the handprint, fresh, red. Lena screamed. I turned and saw her backing away from the opposite wall, where her flashlight had landed on an old hospital mirror, still somehow intact despite the decay. She was pale, shaking, and pointed a trembling finger. I looked into the mirror. We weren't alone. Behind us stood a tall figure cloaked in shadow. I spun around, but there was no one there. Only when I turned back to the mirror, it was still there, closer now. "Run," Lena whispered, tears running down her face. We ran down the stairs, through the hallways, breath ragged and fast. Every corridor looked the same. Everything twisted. It was like the building was folding in on itself, refusing to let us out. Doors that we passed earlier were gone. Windows now bricked over. I felt something behind us, not following, but inside the walls, like it was bleeding through the cracks. Then we found the morgue. I didn't realize where we were until I saw the freezer drawers, all of them hanging open, empty, or at least they were empty before we blinked. One by one, they began to slam shut. Boom, boom, boom. I screamed Lena's name, but she was gone. I spun in a panic, flashlight swinging wildly. Nothing, no Lena, no exit, just the slamming of steel drawers and the rising whisper of voices all around me, closing in like smoke. And then I saw her. She stood at the far end of the room, barely visible in the light. Her eyes were black pits, her skin stretched thin like paper soaked in water. Her mouth didn't move, but I heard her speak, in my head, like a scream buried in silence. "You can't leave. Not yet. You haven't heard them all." And suddenly, the walls around me, they began to breathe. They pulsed, bulged. I saw faces pushing through the paint, mouths gasping for air, hands clawing at nothing, eyes rolling in agony. They whispered in unison, a language I didn't understand, but somehow still feared. They were in pain, and they wanted me to feel it. I collapsed. I don't remember anything after that except crawling, blind and trembling through the wreckage. I don't remember escaping. I don't remember how I found the hole in the wall, or how I got back to my car. I only remember waking up in the passenger seat hours later with Lena beside me. Silent, staring forward, eyes wide and unblinking. She never spoke about it again. I tried to check the footage we recorded. All of it was corrupted. The files were there, but they wouldn't play. The audio, it was still intact. I wish I hadn't listened. It was the whispering, but not ours. It was the same voices from inside the hospital, louder, clearer, and layered beneath our own words. They were speaking to us, with us, through us. One voice in particular kept repeating, "Tell them, let them hear, let them come." I deleted the files. We moved to different cities, lost touch. I don't think Lena's okay. I know I'm not. Sometimes I still hear the whispers at night, in my walls, in the silence of my apartment. They start low, then rise, just like in the hospital. And every time I do, I wonder if I ever actually left St. Marlo's at all, or if I'm still there, trapped, listening. Story 2. I took the night shift for the quiet. After years in construction and chaos, I thought working as an overnight security guard would be a welcome change. Just me, the silence, and a big, empty building to watch over. That building just happened to be Braeburn Memorial Hospital, an abandoned, condemned structure slated for demolition within the year. I was told to expect nothing. No staff, no visitors. Just check-ins every hour through the walkie, walk the perimeter and don't let the squatters break in. Easy work, or it should have been. Braeburn had been closed since the late 90s. The official line was financial collapse, but locals whispered about patient disappearances, lawsuits hushed with cash, and one doctor whose name had been scratched off every file in the system. The hospital sat on the edge of town like a wound that wouldn't close. Windows boarded up, vines strangling the brickwork, and a smell that never left no matter how many years passed. Still, the paycheck was good, and I didn't believe in ghost stories. At first, it was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. My flashlight beam barely cut through the gloom as I made rounds through the old emergency wing. Wheelchairs lay overturned in the hall. Files still littered the floors, like everyone had left in a hurry and no one ever looked back. Then came the third night. That's when everything changed. It started small. A door slamming behind me in the maternity ward. I brushed it off as wind, even though there were no open windows. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I turned, expecting to find a vagrant, but the hallway was empty. Then the walkie crackled. "You see them, they're here, static." I jumped. No one was supposed to be on the channel. I responded. No answer. I wrote it off. A fluke. Maybe someone else crossed frequencies. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But then, around 3:30 a.m., while checking the pediatric wing, my flashlight flickered and I heard humming. A soft lullaby, a child's voice. I spun around, heart hammering. No one. The humming continued, drifting from one of the rooms. I followed it, because of course I did. That's what every idiot in horror stories does. The door was half open. Inside, the wallpaper peeled like sunburned flesh. The crib in the corner was empty at first, but then the mobile above it began to spin, slowly. I didn't breathe, I didn't blink. The humming stopped, then a whisper, right behind me. He watches through the mirrors. I ran. I bolted down the hallway, not caring about protocol or cameras or radios. I locked myself in the security office and stayed there until dawn. Lights on, hands shaking. I should have quit, but something made me come back. Curiosity, stupidity, pride, or maybe it was something deeper, something pulling me. On the fifth night, I found the basement access open. The padlock had been cut, but no signs of forced entry. I called it in, but there was no response from dispatch. So I went down. The basement smelled like rot and chemicals, the kind of scent that clings to your skin and doesn't let go. The walls were lined with outdated equipment, autoclaves, broken gurneys, racks of rusted tools. It was colder than the rest of the building. Freezing, actually. That's where I saw it. The operating room, not on any blueprint, tucked behind an unmarked steel door. Inside, the table was still set. Straps buckled in, scalpel trays dusted with something dark and dry, and on the far wall, smeared handprints. Small ones, like from children. A dozen of them reaching up as if trying to escape. And something written above the door. We still feel, I don't remember leaving. I must have blacked out. When I came to, I was back in the security office. My uniform was damp with sweat. My boots caked in something brown. Mud, maybe. I didn't look too closely. That night I heard them. Not whispers, not hums. Full sentences, screaming, crying, begging. It echoed from the vents. Traveled up through the floors like the building was vomiting its history. I saw shadows move where my flashlight didn't. I felt cold hands brush past my arms. I smelled burning flesh in rooms that were supposedly untouched by the old fire. And the mirrors. Oh God, the mirrors. I started noticing them everywhere: hallways, nurses' stations, bathrooms. The glass always looked off, like it rippled slightly. Then, on my 7th night, I caught something in the reflection. Not me, someone else. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like an old surgical coat, his face obscured by a stained mask. He stood behind me in the reflection, but when I turned, he was gone. I stared at the mirror, heart pounding. He didn't vanish. She just walked away inside the glass and smiled. I smashed the mirror. It didn't help. That was the beginning of the loop. Every night after, things got worse. I'd hear footsteps, open doors, voices crying out my name, my full name, which I'd never shared with anyone on site. One night, I woke up in the morgue. I didn't even remember falling asleep. The drawers were open again. I swear something was breathing inside one of them. I got desperate. I looked up the hospital's past. The archives were thin, most records destroyed in a flood, which no one could confirm. But I found an old article from 1973. A doctor, Elias Caro, suspended after allegations of unethical treatments on terminal patients, accused of using experimental surgeries without consent. They said he vanished before charges were filed, last seen at Brayburn, in the basement, my basement. His photo sent chills down my spine. It was him, the man in the mirrors. I couldn't take it anymore. I resigned on the 10th night. I left a voicemail through the badge on the desk and walked out before sunset. Or I tried, but the front doors were sealed, welded shut. No noise, no breeze, no exit. Even the emergency exits had changed. Now, solid walls, and the windows. Every one of them now showed different hallways, different rooms. Not the outside world, like I was inside, a memory, or a trap. The lights died, the silence fell like a weight. And then, I heard them all at once. The children, the patients, the nurses, screaming, wailing, bones cracking, machines buzzing. Elias Caro's voice cutting through them all. They belonged to me now. And behind me, the mirrors shimmered. I saw them. Faces, dozens of them, trapped inside, pressed against the glass, watching, begging. My own reflection looked back at me, and it wasn't me. It smiled. And then I woke up. Outside, in my car, in the middle of a field. Brayburn was gone. Just gone. Nothing but weeds and rusted fence posts. I tried to report it. No one believed me. They said Brayburn was demolished 20 years ago. No shift logs, no badge records, no existence. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And sometimes, late at night, I see my reflection move a split second out of sync and I hear humming. Software, a lullaby, and I think maybe I never left Brayburn. Maybe I'm still in the mirror. Story 3. Have you ever stood in a place so cold, so silent, that it felt like the building itself was holding its breath? Waiting. Watching. What if that place was filled with the echoes of the forgotten, the tortured, the lost, the souls left behind? My name is Thomas Wren, and I've spent the last 5 years exploring the places most people fear. The condemned, the crumbling, the erased. My channel's all about urban legends and lost history. Forgotten factories, ghost towns, sanatoriums. But nothing ever came close to what I found in Vermont. St. Elora Asylum wasn't just forgotten. It was scrubbed from history. No official records, no newspaper archives. I only heard about it from a user called Deep Cut Stitches, who messaged me after I posted a video about an abandoned orphanage in Maine. They wrote, "If you want real horror, look for St. Elora, but don't go alone. They don't like visitors." They attached a scan of a hand-drawn map and a single grainy black and white photo. A long, cracked hallway. shadows bleeding into the walls. Naturally, I was hooked. The asylum was supposedly deep in the woods, miles off any paved road. Locals wouldn't talk about it. Some denied it even existed. I became obsessed. I cross-referenced property records, scanned defunct state mental health reports, even reached out to a few retired state employees. Most ghosted me. One woman, a former records clerk, sent me a 3-word email, "Don't dig deeper." That only made me dig harder. I set out in October, the map in my hand, camera gear on my back. No crew, no backup, just me in the woods. The drive was uneventful until GPS failed. My compass spun like it was drunk. After parking on the roadside, I hiked through thick brush for over an hour, and then, as if I had stepped through some invisible curtain, the woods opened up. St. Elora stood before me. 3 colossal buildings, worn by time, but still whole. Ivy clung to every stone, windows like dark, eyes sunken in a skull. The main structure had a sun-bleached sign over the entry, almost illegible. St. Elora Institute for the Introspective Sciences. I remember pausing and whispering aloud, "This place doesn't want to be found." Still, I went in. The front doors groaned open with a push. Inside, the air was thick, stagnant, and charged. Like the air before a lightning strike, my flashlight beam sliced through the gloom, revealing warped floors, rusted wheelchairs, medical carts left to rot. But it wasn't just decay, it was frozen time. Dustless footprints led into the dark. Mine weren't the first. I explored for nearly 2 hours. The place was a maze, hallways looping back on themselves, staircases that ended in brick walls. I found what looked like an old theater with rows of chairs facing an operating table. The walls were covered in peeling white tiles, stained with something black. Graffiti littered the asylum, but some of it felt wrong. The body is a prison. Thoughts are echoes. We never left. And then I heard it. A soft knock, then again, knock, knock, rhythmic, almost playful. I turned toward the sound, expecting another explorer or a raccoon. What I saw instead chilled me. At the end of the hallway stood a woman, pale, dressed in a nurse's uniform, soaked in something dark. Her surgical mask was old, stained yellow. Her eyes were black pits. She didn't move, didn't blink. Then she lifted one hand and beckoned. The hallway behind me slammed shut, a wall where the exit had been. I was no longer in the same hallway. The air shifted, thick and humming. Every door lining the corridor had the same sign burned into the wood. Soul division in progress. Do not disturb. That's when the crying started. Soft, desperate sobs echoing from every direction, blending into whispers, names, numbers, prayers. I turned a corner and stumbled into what I can only describe as a treatment room, except it looked more like a torture chamber. Straps on the tables, bloodstains so old they were part of the floor. There was a projector running, no screen, just flickering images against the wall. A patient strapped down, screaming, while a man in a long white coat drilled into his forehead. And then the projection changed. It showed me, walking the hallway, speaking into my camera, saying things I hadn't yet said. I backed out, heart hammering. That's when the floor vanished beneath me. I crashed through rotting boards, landing hard in a basement I didn't know existed. Darkness swallowed everything. My flashlight flickered, then died. I lay there in pitch black when I heard the breathing. Close, too close. Something exhaled slowly, deliberately, inches from my face. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then I heard it whisper, "We've been waiting for you." The beam flickered back on. The room was lined with tanks, glass containers filled with murky fluid. Inside each one, people, floating, unmoving, their eyes open and wide. Some had tubes coming out of their mouths. Some were curled into fetal positions. One tank was shattered, empty. I stepped forward and realized one of the floating bodies looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same face, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Then the lights above blinked, and I was no longer alone. A figure stepped out from the dark. A man in a surgeon's coat, tall and thin, with skin pulled too tightly over his face. His badge read, Dr. First Rylance. His voice was calm. You're the 100th subject. Congratulations. I tried to run. He raised a hand and I froze, literally frozen, like my body no longer belonged to me. Most explorers are curious, he continued. They come, they look, they leave. But the ones who see us, those who connect, they never leave. Their shells might, but their essence, that's ours now. He approached, placing a cold hand on my forehead. I couldn't move. You'll feel the separation. It won't hurt. Much. The lights pulsed violently. A high-pitched whine filled the air, building and building until my skull felt like it would crack. Then, silence. I woke up, gasping, covered in mud, in the woods. The asylum was gone. No ruins, no structure, just trees. My gear was scattered around me, my phone dead, my camera somehow on, filming static. I limped back to my car, confused and numb. At home, I checked the footage and it was all there, everything. The tanks, the nurse, Dr. Rylance, the scalpel, my face screaming behind glass. I uploaded it immediately. My channel was deleted within the hour. The video vanished. My email accounts were wiped. Even the footage on my SD card corrupted itself before my eyes. I contacted friends in the tech space. No one could explain it. One of them examined a recovered frame and found metadata hidden inside that simply read, ST Allura accepts you. Since that day, I haven't been the same. Sometimes I catch my reflection not moving when I do. Other times, I hear static coming from unplugged speakers. I've started blacking out for minutes at a time. I wake up in places I don't remember going. I dream of tanks, of screaming, of Dr. Rylance whispering, the shell walks, but the soul stays. Sometimes I wonder if the real me never left. Maybe this life I'm living is just a fragment, a clone, a walking echo, while the real Thomas Wren is still inside that asylum, strapped to a table, forever watching the world through borrowed eyes. And if you ever find yourself in the deep woods of Vermont and you see a crumbling building in distance, turn around, walk away. Because once ST Allura finds you, you never leave whole. 3 hospitals, 3 stories that defy explanation. From whispering walls to unseen forces to souls that never left. What do you think is really happening in these abandoned places? Are they haunted, cursed, or is something darker hiding in plain sight? Tell us in the comments. And if you've ever explored a place like this, we want to hear your story. Thanks for watching. If this chilled you, like, subscribe, and tap the bell to join the darkness here on Mr. Darkville. Watch our True Horror playlist next if you dare. Until next time, stay out of the shadows, because some places never forget you. Flickering hallway fades to black.